There comes a moment in every person's life when they quietly wonder, is this really all there is? Maybe it's late at night after everyone else has gone to sleep. Maybe it's during a long drive, staring through the windshield while your mind wanders somewhere far beyond the road ahead. Or maybe it's in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, surrounded by people, yet feeling strangely disconnected from the life you've built. On the surface, everything appears normal. You wake up, follow your routine, solve the same problems, and chase the same goals. But deep inside, there's a voice that refuses to stay silent. It whispers that you were meant for something greater. It reminds you that the person you've become is not the only person you could be. And what if that voice is right? What if your future has never been limited by your circumstances, your past, or the opinions of others? What if the only thing standing between the life you have and the life you dream about is the story you've been telling yourself? This audiobook is about that story. More importantly, it's about learning how to rewrite it, because the truth is simple, yet life-changing. Every reality begins as a belief. Change the belief and you begin changing the reality. Most people spend their entire lives trying to rearrange the world around them. They search for better jobs, bigger homes, healthier relationships, and more money, believing that happiness is waiting somewhere outside themselves. They imagine that once everything falls into place, they'll finally feel confident, fulfilled, and at peace. But time passes, goals are achieved, and somehow the satisfaction never lasts. Every new milestone quickly becomes normal. Every accomplishment is replaced by another expectation. The destination keeps moving farther away. The reason is surprisingly simple. You cannot permanently improve your life while carrying the same mindset that created your current experience. External success may change your surroundings, but lasting fulfillment begins with an internal transformation. Before your life can change, your thinking must change. Before your future can improve, your identity must evolve. Reality is not built from the outside in. It is created from the inside out. Imagine walking through a house filled with mirrors. Every mirror reflects exactly what stands before it. If you smile, the reflection smiles back. If you frown, the reflection does the same. It would seem ridiculous to become angry at the mirror for showing you a face you don't like. Yet, that's exactly how many people approach life. They dislike the reflection, their circumstances, but never consider changing the person standing in front of the mirror. Your life behaves much the same way. Your habits, decisions, relationships, opportunities, and achievements often reflect the beliefs you've carried for years. The world responds not only to what you do, but to who you believe you are. If deep down you believe you deserve very little, you'll unknowingly make choices that keep your life small. If you believe growth is possible, you'll begin noticing opportunities that were invisible before. The mirror doesn't create the image, it reflects it. Reality often works the same way. One of the most powerful truths you'll discover is that your identity quietly controls your behavior. Every action you take is influenced by the answer to one invisible question. Who am I? If someone believes they are unhealthy, every attempt to exercise feels like a struggle against their own identity. If someone believes they are financially irresponsible, they may continue making poor decisions even after learning better habits. If someone believes they aren't creative, they'll stop themselves before they ever begin. Your identity acts like an invisible operating system, running beneath every decision you make. This is why information alone rarely changes lives. Millions of people know what they should do. They know they should save money, exercise consistently, learn new skills, spend less time scrolling, and invest more time growing. Knowledge isn't the problem. Identity is. People rarely outperform the story they believe about themselves. Think back to your childhood. Before anyone told you what was realistic or impossible, Your imagination had no boundaries. You believed you could become anything. Failure wasn't a permanent label. It was simply part of learning. Somewhere along the journey, life began handing you labels. Maybe a teacher suggested you weren't smart enough. Maybe someone laughed at your dreams. Maybe failure convinced you that success belonged to other people. Slowly, those moments became beliefs. Those beliefs became habits. Those habits became your reality. But here's what most people never realize. Those labels were opinions, not permanent truths. They were chapters in your story, not the ending. You have spent years reading from a script written by fear, doubt, disappointment, and other people's expectations. This audiobook exists to remind you that you are also the author, and authors can rewrite their stories. The mind is extraordinary because it doesn't simply record your experiences, it interprets them. Two people can live through the same event and create completely different meanings. One person experiences rejection and decides they are unworthy. Another experiences rejection and decides they need to grow. One person sees failure as proof they should quit. Another sees it as feedback guiding them toward improvement. The event is identical. The interpretation changes everything. Life is less about what happens to you and more about the meaning you assign to what happens. That meaning shapes your emotions. Your emotions influence your decisions. Your decisions determine your future. In many ways, your life is not a collection of events. It is a collection of interpretations. This is why awareness is the beginning of transformation. Before you can rewrite your reality, you must first recognize the invisible script already running your life. Listen carefully to the conversations happening inside your own mind. Notice how often you say things like, "I'm just not lucky. People like me never succeed. It's too late," or "I've always been this way." These statements feel harmless because you've repeated them so many times, but every repetition strengthens the identity behind them. Your subconscious mind doesn't pause to ask whether these statements are true. It accepts repetition as evidence. Whatever you repeatedly tell yourself becomes familiar. Whatever becomes familiar begins feeling true. Eventually, you stop questioning the story altogether. The remarkable news is that the same process that created your current reality can create a completely different one. Every powerful belief you admire in successful, confident, resilient people began as a thought repeated consistently until it became part of who they were. They weren't born believing they could overcome every obstacle. They developed that belief through countless moments of choosing courage over comfort, action over hesitation, and possibility over fear. They rewrote their internal story long before the outside world recognized the change. By the time success became visible, the transformation had already happened within. As you continue this journey through Rewrite Your Reality, remember one simple idea. Your past may explain your present, but it does not define your future. Every sunrise offers something extraordinary, a blank page. Most people spend that page rewriting yesterday. A few courageous individuals choose to write something entirely new. Those are the people who eventually change not only their own lives, but also inspire everyone around them. Starting today, you have the same opportunity. The pen has always been in your hands. The only question is what story you will choose to write next. One of the greatest illusions people believe is that change happens in a single dramatic moment. We imagine that one decision, one opportunity, one lucky break, or one inspiring speech will instantly transform our lives. Movies often tell that story. A person reaches a breaking point, makes one bold choice, and suddenly everything is different. Real life is quieter than that. Real transformation rarely announces itself with fireworks. Instead, it arrives disguised as ordinary days and small decisions. It appears in the choice to wake up a little earlier. It appears in the decision to read instead of endlessly scrolling through distractions. It appears in choosing patience over anger, discipline over comfort, and long-term growth over short-term pleasure. These moments seem insignificant while they're happening, but together they become the foundation of an entirely different life. Your reality is not rewritten in one extraordinary day. It is rewritten through hundreds of ordinary days lived with extraordinary intention. The truth is that every person is constantly becoming someone. The question is whether that transformation is happening by design or by default. If you never consciously decide who you want to become, your environment will decide for you. Your habits will shape you without asking permission. The opinions of strangers will quietly influence your confidence. Social media will tell you what success should look like. Advertising will convince you that happiness is always one purchase away. Comparison will whisper that everyone else is moving faster than you. Little by little, without realizing it, you begin living someone else's definition of a successful life. One day you wake up and realize you've been climbing a ladder that was leaning against the wrong wall. You achieved goals that never truly belonged to you. That's why the first step in rewriting your reality isn't changing your schedule. It's defining your own vision of the life you actually want. Take a moment to imagine your life 5 years from now. Not the version shaped by fear or doubt, but the version created by your highest potential. What kind of person wakes up each morning in that future? How do they think when problems appear? How do they treat other people? How do they spend their free time? What habits have they developed? What beliefs guide their decisions? Notice that the answers aren't about money alone. They're about character. Every meaningful achievement begins with becoming the kind of person capable of sustaining it. Wealth without wisdom disappears. Success without discipline collapses. Confidence without humility becomes arrogance. Lasting results are always built upon lasting character. Rewrite Your Reality reminds us that fear is one of the most convincing storytellers the mind will ever encounter. Fear has an answer for every dream. Want to start a business? Fear tells you it will probably fail. Want to ask someone out? Fear predicts rejection before you've even spoken. Want to learn a new skill? Fear reminds you how far behind everyone else you are. Want to pursue a meaningful goal? Fear insists you're too late, too inexperienced, too ordinary, or too different. The remarkable thing about fear is that it almost always speaks with certainty, even when it has absolutely no evidence. It presents guesses as facts and possibilities as guarantees. If you listen closely, you'll notice that fear is almost entirely focused on an imaginary future that hasn't happened yet. Courage, on the other hand, doesn't promise certainty. Courage simply says, take the next step anyway. People often believe courageous individuals are fearless, but that's rarely true. Courage is fear that refuses to become the final decision. Every entrepreneur has experienced uncertainty. Every artist has doubted their work. Every athlete has questioned their abilities before an important competition. Every leader has faced moments of insecurity. The difference is not the absence of fear. The difference is what happens after fear speaks. Some people obey it. Others acknowledge it, then continue moving forward. Reality begins changing the moment you stop allowing fear to make your decisions. Another powerful lesson is that attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Wherever your attention consistently goes, your life gradually follows. If your attention is consumed by outrage, negativity, and comparison, your emotional world begins reflecting those experiences. If your attention is invested in learning, creating, building relationships, and improving yourself, those areas naturally expand. Your attention functions like sunlight in a garden. Whatever receives the most light grows stronger. This is why protecting your focus has become one of the greatest skills of the modern world. Never before have so many people competed for your attention every minute of every day. Notifications, headlines, advertisements, endless videos, and constant opinions all pull your mind in different directions. If you don't choose where your attention belongs, someone else will choose for you. The author encourages you to become the architect of your inner world. Architects don't begin by placing furniture inside a building. They begin with a blueprint. In the same way, lasting transformation begins with an internal blueprint of the person you intend to become. Every morning becomes an opportunity to reinforce that blueprint through your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Instead of asking, "What do I feel like doing today?" begin asking, "What would the person I'm becoming choose today?" That single question quietly shifts your identity. Your actions stop depending on temporary emotions and start reflecting permanent values. One of the most liberating truths you'll ever discover is that progress is not a straight line. Some days you'll feel unstoppable. Other days you'll question everything. There will be mornings filled with confidence and evenings filled with doubt. You'll experience victories that make you believe anything is possible, followed by setbacks that tempt you to quit. None of these moments define you. They are simply part of the process. Mountains are climbed one step at a time, not one leap at a time. Rivers reach the ocean by continuing to flow around obstacles instead of demanding that every obstacle disappear. Likewise, your greatest strength isn't perfection. It's persistence. The people who eventually create extraordinary lives are rarely the ones who never fall. They're the ones who refuse to stay down. As this journey continues, you'll begin noticing subtle changes within yourself. Problems that once overwhelmed you will become opportunities to grow. Criticism that once discouraged you will become useful feedback. Failures that once felt permanent will become temporary lessons. You'll stop measuring yourself against everyone around you and start measuring yourself against the person you were yesterday. That shift is incredibly powerful because real competition has never been with the world. It has always been with the older version of yourself. Eventually, you'll realize that rewriting your reality isn't about pretending life is easy. Challenges will still appear. Unexpected setbacks will still happen. People will still disappoint you. Plans will still change. But your response will no longer be controlled by old habits and limiting beliefs. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you'll naturally begin asking, "What is this preparing me for?" That simple change in perspective transforms obstacles into teachers and difficulties into opportunities. The world outside may remain uncertain, but the world within becomes stronger, calmer, and more intentional. And once your inner world changes, your outer reality gradually begins reflecting the person you've chosen to become. There is a quiet truth that many people spend decades trying to avoid. Every decision you make is a vote for the person you are becoming. You may not notice it after a single day, but over the course of months and years, those votes begin to reveal a clear pattern. Every time you choose honesty over convenience, you strengthen integrity. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen character. Every time you choose curiosity over judgment, you expand your understanding of the world. In the same way, every excuse strengthens procrastination. Every moment of unnecessary resentment strengthens bitterness. Every decision to give up strengthens the belief that challenges are too much to overcome. Your identity is not built during extraordinary moments. It is built through the ordinary choices no one else sees. That is why Rewrite Your Reality reminds us that greatness is never an accident. It is the natural result of thousands of small decisions made consistently over time. One of the biggest obstacles to transformation is the belief that you need perfect conditions before you begin. People tell themselves they'll start exercising when life becomes less busy. They'll launch the business when they have more money. They'll write the book when they feel inspired. They'll repair relationships when the timing feels right. But perfect conditions rarely arrive. Life is constantly changing, presenting new responsibilities, new distractions, and new uncertainties. If you wait for everything to become ideal, you'll spend your entire life preparing instead of living. The people who accomplish extraordinary things are not the ones who found perfect opportunities. They are the ones who learn to create progress in imperfect circumstances. They understood that action creates momentum, and momentum creates confidence. It's easy to believe that successful people possess something you don't. Maybe they were born with greater intelligence, more talent, better connections, or endless confidence. But when you look closely, you'll often discover something much simpler. They became willing to stay committed after the excitement disappeared. They continued practicing when nobody applauded. They kept showing up when results were invisible. Most people underestimate how powerful consistency becomes when multiplied over years. Imagine improving by just a tiny amount every single day. One day may seem meaningless. One week may appear unchanged. But after months and years, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Small improvements, repeated faithfully, eventually outperform dramatic efforts that are abandoned too soon. The author reminds us that comparison is one of the fastest ways to lose sight of our own journey. Modern life makes comparison almost unavoidable. Every day we're shown carefully edited highlights of other people's lives. We see their promotions, vacations, achievements, celebrations, and victories, but rarely their failures, doubts, sleepless nights, or sacrifices. Without realizing it, we begin comparing our behind-the-scenes struggles with everyone else's highlight reel. It's an unfair comparison that leaves many people feeling as though they're falling behind. But every life unfolds at its own pace. Some seeds become flowers within weeks. Others grow into towering trees over decades. Neither journey is wrong. The timing is simply different. Your responsibility is not to race someone else's clock. It is to remain faithful to your own path. Another lesson woven throughout Rewrite Your Reality is that your words carry extraordinary power. Long before they influence anyone else, they influence you. Listen carefully to the language you use every day. Do you constantly say, "I have to," or do you say, "I get to"? One phrase feels like a burden. The other feels like an opportunity. Do you describe challenges as impossible, or do you describe them as difficult but manageable? The words may seem small, but they quietly shape your emotional state.